What's going on, y'all? I'm Bud Elliott, and this is the Nolecast Instant Reaction. It has been a long time since I started one of these in the fourth quarter of a loss, or at least as of this recording, what looks like a loss. But I am indeed starting this right about the start of the fourth quarter. It doesn't look real good. If they do come back and win, this will be a pretty cool reaction. But I think there's a lot of things about this game that will still hold true. And I'm going to use the pause feature at times so I can, watch drives. But I'm going to talk during commercials a little bit, and then when it's finally over, I'm sure I'll, talk a little more. This effort just sucked. I mean, I had a little bit of a nervous feeling about this on body types last week. I kind of thought they would bounce back and beat Boston College, but you didn't read a single good practice report this week. We'll see kind of what becomes of this team going forward. I do think the bye week is probably well timed for them, regardless of result here, which obviously right now it doesn't look too good. But where is the fight in this team on a down and down basis? Where's maybe fight's not a bad word because it doesn't appear that they have quit. Where is the focus for this team? Where is the intensity and the intent? I'm not really seeing that here. And this is not like a, hey, you can't put your finger on specifics, so you just got to go for nebulous like effort, comment. No, like this is kind of 2 weeks in a row where it looks like the opponent, and much more pronounced tonight, has more focus and more heart and more intent and wants the game more than you do. I just quite simply think Boston College cares more about this ball game, at least from what I've seen so far. And I think that's concerning, right? Every team is a new team every year. Now, you can say, hey, that's because of transfers. You can say, hey, that's because of, just how much you lost to the NFL. Totally fair, right? All viewpoints there could be valid. Every team is a new team, and you don't really know how they're going to play when the bullets fly. But this perceived effort level is a bit concerning. And some of these guys have talent, and some of them don't have great talent. So to me, it's like, I need you to play a little better focus and intensity so that you can limit some of those mistakes. I don't really see that. I also, at this point, I think you do have to, question some of their buy-in, both in terms of, taking the coaching so that you're not making the same mistakes over and over again. Like, specifically here, the mistakes that are not entirely talent-based, but also like the buy-in for each other. Like, does this team not like each other? That's kind of my thought process at this point. Or maybe they just don't love ball. I don't know. But by lack of focus, I just want to start here on offense, right? You don't have enough guys who are able to focus and do the right thing on a down and down basis frequently enough to have an effective offense. At this point, you just don't, right? I mean, DJ obviously had some really bad misses in the game. That is sort of who he is, not who he always is, but certainly who he is to an amount that means he's not in the NFL right now. I'm not saying the guy is terrible, because there were certainly things tonight that could have, helped him out, which I will talk about in a second. But they just cannot seem to get it together and focus. And whether that is, DJ failing to, see guys open or hit them and just dial it up. I don't know if that's totally a focus issue, but just not crisp there, like not seeing guys open, just not being able to lay the ball out anywhere like on the same hemisphere as some of these receivers is frustrating. But we knew that would happen sometimes. If you had told me in the preseason Boston College would have been one of those games that happened in, it would have been like, yeah, okay, because you're still talented enough to beat Boston College, but you're certainly not playing that way. You are not playing like you were talented enough to beat Boston College, at least through this fourth quarter. The defense, as of now, has not quit, but I don't know. Maybe they will. We will see. So DJ had a lot of really bad misses. That contributed to you having an 0 for night in the red zone in terms of touchdowns. I don't really care about red zone field goals. To me, field goals in the red zone are failures for all intent and purposes here. You failed in the red zone. going over 2, right? I mean, the Kentron score was outside the red zone. Um, Brutal. Sometimes a guy would be open and he'd miss him. Other times a guy would be open and he would hit him. And I think tonight I counted like 5 drops or so. DJ with the comeback will throw more than 40 passes, but at this point, like probably high 30s. So I mean, you're talking a pretty unacceptable drop rate there, right? Like that's just not really going to get it done. Um, so yeah, that's certainly a problem. Morlock had a couple. Obviously, Darion had a couple. Just again, when one thing goes right, this unit does not seem to be able to get it together and just focus and do their job consistently, and that's a problem. So sometimes guys were open and dropped it. Sometimes guys were open and DJ either didn't see them or couldn't get it to him just to give him a chance to catch it. Sometimes, as the broadcast points out, Boston College is able to play man-to-man on your receivers, which I think kind of speaks to the level of concern that you had entering the year, but not to this extent, about the receiving core. Now, at some point, Kentron Poitier ended up going against a backup Boston College DB, and he won a couple of those. But again, if you're allowing Boston College to play man coverage on you, I do think it speaks to the lack of receiver talent, in the upperclassmen here. Again, I like a lot of the younger guys coming on. I do quite a bit actually, but these veterans just aren't it, right? I know I was listening to the Yahoo podcast today. It was I think it was, and they were like, yeah, I mean, Florida State's relying on a guy in Benson who basically couldn't get on the field at Alabama, and now he's got to be their one. That's not us saying that, although we did obviously in the preseason. So, but it's a little worse than I thought there. And in offensive line stuff, obviously Byers being out really hurts. I think you hope to have him back after the bye week. I don't really know on that one, but Rob Scott at this point is not particularly playable, and that was a major issue. And so you knew you would have to protect him quite a bit, and that was a problem because Darius Washington kind of had a night where they're probably going to show a lot of Darius Washington clips when Donovan Ezeraku gets drafted because he got roasted a bunch tonight by Ezeraku, and that's no good. So, yeah, not great on that front. Again, back to the focus issue, like you have Maurice Smith false starting. Your senior center who's played a million ball games is false starting on multiple plays. What? I don't know. I don't really know what that's all about. That's not great. So you're having to help out Scott, and then two of your seniors, homegrown talents from high school. It's not a transfer issue here. I'm not going to put everything on transfers. They can't seem to to hold up. Play calling wise was really interesting to me. I mean, you had 2 running back carries in the first half. Obviously, you wanted some more RPO, which RPO is not DJ keep it or give it off. It's DJ hand it off or throw it. I think you wanted more RPO tonight to respond to some of the ways that teams were crashing, and BC, certainly gave the throw read a little more often this week, and so I did sort of like that part, but maybe 2 running back carries in the first half is kind of extreme, with the exception that you didn't really have the ball in the first half at all, right? Now, part of that's because you couldn't keep the ball, but in the first half, Florida State ran, how many plays did they run in the first half? 27 total plays, so a little more than I thought. It started out so poorly because you had three and outs to start, but not much. Are they worried about the ability for Rob Scott to hold up in the run game? Are they worried about some of the looks that Boston College gave them? This kind of is 2 teams in a row that disrespected your receiver. So you will play much better defenses than Boston College, I will guarantee you. And that's a problem because Boston College, as they correctly pointed out on the broadcast, I thought those guys did, I don't know, kind of up and down job as far as pointing out stuff, but you're always going to know the teams you cover better than the national guys who swoop in for a weekend. But they got that one right. They were able to play man coverage on your guys pretty successfully. So if you're due to you're counting on to play well in the offensive line, don't play well, and you can't seem to get much going. When you do dial up something creative, it's either dropped or which I mean, God, some of those drops were killer. Like the little smoke screen bluff thing they tried to throw to Morlock that was dropped. That was pretty horrendous. You know, the one play action shot was really pretty bad. Um, just not what you needed. All right, so a couple questions here, offensive related from our Patreon before I get to the defense. Again, Florida State's not coming back in this one. I don't think. If they do, then this is about to be the most epic instant reaction ever. But I think at a certain point you can kind of know what you're looking at. I think if you've done this, for the longest time. But then again, a lot of people passed through Tallahassee this summer and fall and thought this team looked pretty good physically, and they just can't get it together on the field at all. So, uh, coaching, culture, whatever that is. So Josh asks, I've trusted this staff. We won a bunch of games the last 2 years. Really love the staff, but they also chose a bionic leg Mackenzie Milton over Jordan Travis at one point. So I have questions. Can you address? Yeah, I mean, look, dude. On the question of quarterback, assuming they don't come back to pull this off, and if you can't tell on the audio product, I am pausing to watch the game and just doing this during commercial breaks. I have said that I don't really think you need to play DJ if you're out of it, meaning out of the conference race, out of the playoff race, all that kind of stuff. Um, and at this point, I don't know that you're officially out because of how some of the other teams in this league have looked. NC State looked pretty damn bad against an FCS team. Virginia Tech lost to Vanderbilt. Um, SMU nearly lost to Nevada. Now, granted, Miami looked great, and they'll probably be, favorites to win the conference by the morning. I mean, they're the favorite, but like maybe odds on by the morning time. It is hard to pick a quarterback. Bowden got it wrong several times, like even after watching all the fall camp and after a couple games, had to make a change. Kyle Whittingham, probably Hall of Fame coach, has had to do the same a couple times. Urban Meyer's got it wrong before. I think Saban got it wrong twice. I'm not comparing Mike Norvell to Meyer or Bowden or Saban, obviously, but it is hard to pick the right guy. That's also not saying that Norvell picked the wrong guy here in terms of what happened in fall camp. I have no doubt that DJ has been better than Brock in fall camp, which maybe that's a concerning thing right there. I do, though, think that if you're out of it, like out of it, which I would define as the next time you lose a game. And if this team continues to play with this sort of listless effort and lack of focus, then you will certainly will lose a game and probably a couple more, maybe a lot more. We will see. If that happens, then I do think you need to thank DJ for it. Be like, all right, you need to see what you got in Brock. Okay. Can't be a lot more painful than this. There'll probably be some greater variance in terms of maybe the highs, but also some really crazy lows. But I do think you kind of need to know what you have in that guy because this is Florida State, right? And you don't play for, we can still have a 9-win season. Like that ain't it, right? Florida State is about higher things. That's what this fan base grew up on. That's why they donate. And so I do think at some point you'll need to make that change. I don't know if it has to be next week. Well, next week's the bye week. I don't know if it has to be coming out of the bye week, but clearly, like this team doesn't have the right type of chemistry and focus to accomplish its goals, which sucks, because physically, I mean, you don't see these guys in person like, oh yeah, that's not it. Like they're as a roster, they're starting to look the part more. So it makes you question the coaching some at certain spots, clearly, which I'm sure we'll talk about more throughout the season. All right. Want to thank our sponsors here. Obviously, been sweating through it all night on the group text with Chad. Just, I mean, brutal, you know. But what's not brutal is a legendary team. 844 FSU Loan. That's 844 FSU Loan. Also hit the link in the show notes. They do such a tremendous job. I mean, just almost 600 Nolecast listeners have gone to them for their loans, and it's bad that FSU can't put a better product on the field right now, so that more people are hyped up to listen to this podcast to go get a home loan through chat. 844 FSU loan is the number to call, and we really appreciate the support. Also, Matt Lewis of Congruity and Matt Thompson of the For the Table Restaurant Group, Charlie Park, Township, Mad So. They all support our show, and we thank them for it, as well as our Patreon supporters. So, yeah, man, pretty disappointing effort. Offensively, that's about all I got. Defensively, oh, it's back. Defensively, I'm sure Mike Norvell's got some soul searching to do. Right, this was really disappointing in a lot of areas, and yet I do think in some ways fixable, which is crazy, right? You gave up 369 total yards to Boston College, 5.4 yards per play. They are kneeling it out now. By the way, I ended up watching the final 8 minutes of this just to kind of watch the vibes and that kind of stuff and answer some text. So obviously, really disappointing. 9 of 16 on third down, which is tough. Uh, Here's the thing: like, you lost this game in a very similar way that you lost to Georgia Tech, right? And that was 11-man run game, having to be disciplined and physical in your fits, having to trigger on time, having to leverage the football, and having to tackle. Boston College tonight, much like Georgia Tech, in fact, even a more extreme version of Georgia Tech, they had 106 yards passing. Florida State did a pretty damn good job on BC's pass game overall, right? I mean, 10 of 16 for 106 it's not great. It's certainly not terrible. The passes, though, I mean, how many were to running backs? They targeted running backs like 6 out of those 16, maybe 7, if that kid's a running back. I mean, they're like chucking the ball to Trayshawn Ward and Kai Robichaux, and they're repeatedly targeting your linebackers, either matched up on backs or matched up on crossers, right? And there's a couple reasons for that. One, because they have access to film, because everybody does, right? They see that FSU's linebackers are pretty poor, and they're like, oh, these guys really can't cover. They don't pass guys off very well in zone. They don't communicate well. They're not overly physical, and they're not super athletic, with the exception of Nicholson. So let's not throw to the guy who Nicholson's covering, probably, because he can actually run. Man, they don't recruit this position very well, do they? All right, so snark aside, this was a carbon copy of the Georgia Tech game plan. BC loses 2 guards to the NFL, and their starting guard is out. And yet, in this game, I think you have a real right to be more disappointed, because I did not see great effort and execution from Farmer and Jackson up front. In the Georgia Tech game, I thought they did a tremendous job on double teams, and the backers just didn't trigger downhill at all. Now, in this game, there's certainly some of that. Like, teams are taking advantage of your linebackers a lot. A lot. It's pretty bad, pass game and run game. But also, you didn't create a ton of tackles for loss tonight, right? I mean, you had 5 on 68 plays? You had some really, I thought, kind of okay defense to open the game. Very low in terms of yards per play. Boston College was converting some third downs really just by a hair. And in my mind, I'm like, that's going to stop. Okay, most likely. That it's unlikely that teams are going to be able to string together 14 play scoring drives on you over and over again. And ultimately, they did stop, right? Now, unfortunately, Boston College did hit some explosive plays, which was not something that you saw early in the game. In fact, for a long stretch, the longest play Boston College had was an 11-yard play where the runner, 17 yards, but 11 of the 17 were of a runner who fumbled and somebody else picked it up. So At the start, I didn't really hate the plan. I was concerned that the backers were not triggering downhill quite as well as they needed to, and you kind of got unlucky a little bit. I'm not trying to make excuses here. It is a bit unlucky if you're right there on most of those third downs, and it's just pretty well executed, and just they just get it right. But it's not like you're blowing coverages left and right. That came later, so that does come in this game. So their first 19 plays went for 86 yards. You will take that all night. The problem is the offense just kept going three and out, and Boston College holds the ball for a long time, like they're a triple option team, which I certainly would as well, playing in that kind of heat in Tallahassee. Like I'm not trying to run much of tempo when I have a roster that is, theoretically less deep. So that's a problem. Um, However, I don't know. Like I understand what they're trying to do, but 2 games in a row now, it has not worked. I wonder if they don't need to start sending guys more. I mean, shoot, like they're 0-2, so maybe they do. And this is very kind of small things when the bigger picture is like, shoot, you're 0-2, right? Like that sucks. But I wonder if they don't need to start sending guys more because they're not triggering very well and like they're not seeing it with their eyes. And if they can't see it, some teams just send them a lot, right? And that there's pluses and minuses to that, clearly. But one thing I do think that they needed to do a much better job of is creating those negative leverage situations. So here are the third downs faced by Boston College throughout this game. And I think there's an important point here because we talked about this. When Boston College is in third and long, they're kind of dead. Like they're not going to convert a lot of third and longs. So, for this, let's define third and long as, I don't know, what do you want to say? 3rd and 7 or more? That's probably fair. Maybe 3rd and 6 is really kind of what a lot of folks would say. Fine. Let's use 3rd and 6. You can tell I'm just kind of ripping here. I don't have a lot of notes on this, but I do have stats. And I had my eyes, which is why I pulled up the stat. I wanted to look at this. All right. Distances of Boston College's third downs. This is not what they got, but how far they had to go. 5, 5, 5, 2, 6, 2, 6, 7, 3, 4, 2, 9, 3, 7, 6. And then obviously the kneel down. So we're not going to count that one. I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that were under 6 yards. You had 1, 2, 3, exactly 6 yards. And then you had 1, 2, only 3 of 7 or more yards in terms of third down distance. I totally understand not wanting to allow the explosive play. I get it. And yes, explosive plays, you're pretty dead if you're allowing a lot of them with where the offense is right now. And I'm sure Adam Fuller knows that this offense sucks, right? But if you want to have, like, if they're holding the ball for a long period of time and you're having trouble getting in rhythm, you do want to get the ball back more. And I think in 2 games, I don't know that your defense is forced a turnover, right? And that is something I know they preach, and we have obviously, like, they did force 2 fumbles. Just Boston College didn't actually, they recovered their own fumbles. That happens. But we do know that turnovers happen, especially interceptions, a little more often in negative leverage situations where you are behind the sticks. And especially with a kid like that who is short and who plays his butt off, but he's not a particularly great thrower. He is great at running around and finding lanes to throw in. Otherwise, every pass he throws would be batted down. But you did not create those negative leverage situations. And you would like to think that your defensive line can create those. They're clearly not right now. And I got to tell you, if I'm scheming against Florida State, I'm trying to double those big guys on the inside. And I don't think those backers are going to trigger fast enough to make me pay for it. Right? If I'm Florida State, I'm seriously having to look at sending more guys to try to get lucky, rolling the dice, and you will allow more explosive plays, but also you may knock teams off schedule more. And I do think that as currently comprised, this FSU defense is much better suited to play in long down and distance. Now, every team is, right? but certain teams are more magnified to that approach, right? Think about what the maybe those Colts teams with Peyton Manning were, right? In long down and distance, they were a real pain in the ass to deal with because they could rip off the edge. Jones and Peyton can certainly do that in obvious passing downs where they don't have to worry quite as much about Castellanos' legs. For the past two games, they have been very preoccupied for for the right reasons, obviously, with the legs of Castellanos and of King. But I do think that kind of neuters their greatest ability, which is their pass rush, if you're not creating the long down and distance. So I would, I think you probably have no choice but to go ahead and send it a little bit more. And if you think Shaim's playing pretty poorly, or if you think the other safety's playing pretty poorly, depending on who they have in there, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but you might just have to live with it and see if teams can hit it against you. Now, you might say, well, Bud, that's dumb because the other backer coverage is going to be hung out to dry. That's fair. I fully acknowledge that there may not be great answers here. All right, the predictability of the backers being picked on, we've gone over that a lot. They're not very good. I don't think they're poor. I don't think they're well coached. I mean, I have no idea why that hire was made in the first place. I'm not trying to ask for anybody to be fired here on an instant reaction show. I first guessed that. I thought that was a terrible hire. Miami and Florida laughed at it at the time. People I know who work for those teams did, and they are 100% correct, in my opinion. All right. So, yeah, BC stopped converting all those third downs. They did continue to gash you in the run game. They can throw a lot of bodies at your D line, and you don't make them pay for it. Your safeties and backers don't come down and crash very well. Your coverage and chase situations is pretty poor. But then again, teams are pretty sure the looks they're going to get because you don't play zone worth a damn right now. So, yeah, not the worst defensive effort in the world, but certainly one of the more frustrating ones. I think is probably the way I would put it. That's not it's not great. Boston College actually gave you a couple chances. They I don't know why in the world you ended up scoring on this drive. I'm pretty sure, or maybe scored a field goal. O'Brien declined, or O'Brien took a penalty to make it 2nd and 15 instead of 3rd and 10, which is kind of insane, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. Not enough difference makers to play as sloppy and as unfocused and as kind of soft as this team is playing right now. That's the greatest takeaway. Every team's a new team. It's clear they do not have this team ready to play right now. We'll see what they can do over the bye week, right? I don't think it's time to panic on anything long term, but I mean, clearly this team just doesn't have it right now. We will always, talk about it, but just watch them. I mean, 21 rushing yards, 293 total yards to Boston College. It's pretty pathetic, man. Like BC, they'll give up plenty of points this year. Now, obviously, yes, there is the whole thing. Like they have film on you. You don't have film on them. Historically, that is a pretty huge edge. I understand that, actually. It's probably a bigger one than people realize. We talked about it on the Saturday morning preview pod, but people will score on that Boston College defense. I mean, there's some chance they're better than um, I realize. Could be, right? I didn't really know what to expect of them coming to this ballgame, but I doubt they're like way, way better. It's probably just that you're a lot worse because you can't get your stuff together. So, if you're a fan that drove up there tonight, that sucks, right? That's your Labor Day weekend. You have every right to be pissed, I think. So, all right, let me see. Red zone defense obviously improved in the second half. The first half was kind of poor. I like some of the shots they set up on offense. They broke down for whatever reason. That was I mean, this is insane to say, but like they were kind of in their bag a little bit on some of these, and they didn't get 300 yards. So, yikes, big yikes. bye weeks next. Got to see what you can do. I mean, you can't just take your ball and go home, right? So they will play 10 more football games. I think they'll probably play 11 more football games. We will see how that goes. I would call for the youth movement right now, but at the same time, like, you never know, right? The rest of this league, with the exception of Miami, looks like total crap. So, like Kevin Garnett said, anything is possible. We'll see what Mike says in the post game and at his weekly press conference, and we'll check on some of the injuries. And Graham and I will do a show. It's probably Thursday or Friday, since we don't typically, we don't have one for the bye week, obviously. But we will probably do a little mailbag stuff. Clearly, some more big picture talk. I just kind of wanted to go tonight with like what continued to go wrong, and yeah, I will see you guys next time. Peace.